Norm Macdonald was one of the greatest comedians of all time, and he understood one area of stand-up comedy possibly better than anybody else, and he also utilized that understanding any chance he got. Today we are going to look at Norm Macdonald's ability to enjoy the journey and forget about the destination. An absolutely crucial part to learning stand-up comedy. We're going to look at the infamous Moth joke that he told on Conan O'Brien. We are going to break it down moment by moment and find out what techniques of comedy Norm is utilizing in this short clip and how is he making this one of the greatest jokes ever told. So let's jump right into it. Norm Macdonald, the intro, setting up the premise for the Moth joke. Here we go.
Now, not all your material comes from the news. Is that right? You know.
No, some of my material comes. My strongest material comes from real life.
Real life?
Like, for instance, today I was driving in a car. You were kind enough to bring a car to bring this old chunk of coal here to the studio.
We send cars for our guests. Yes.
Yeah. So I got in it, and that's I get material that way. So my driver.
What do you mean? How do you get material that way? You get in the car, and what happens?
My driver tells me a joke.
Boom. All right. What's going on here? He's setting up the premise, right? He's setting up the pace already. He hasn't even started the joke. Right. So what can we learn from this? When we have a joke, what can go before it? We think, oh, I got a joke. I got this piece of material about myself and I can't wait to get to that punchline. Well, there's a whole avenue. There's a whole area even before that joke gets going. So how he opens up this is watch the pacing. Watch when you said he brings the car for this old hunk of coal to get here. And then what does he do with his body language after he says that? He shifts his eye line, looks Conan directly in the eyes, and just pushes that awkwardness out with a little smile on his face. So what we're going to cover in this video, time and time again, these are the techniques. We're going to cover the setup, which we're already in. We're going to cover pauses, which Norm utilizes any chance he gets. And by doing a pause, he's going to push that feeling and connect you to the very moment. No longer are you thinking about the story. You're thinking about what it means to you right now and then, which makes you laugh because of the absurdity of it. Also, we're going to look at the importance of eye contact. Now, this is going to be in the context of interview situation one-on-one. It doesn't mean we cannot learn anything to adapt into our own performances while being on stage. And then we're going to look at shifting the pace of the joke. So if we're going really slowly and then we want to get up to a big moment or we want to get up to an absurd place, maybe we'll play with the pacing of the joke. Perhaps the most common way is to speed up around something that is absolutely absurd and then have a gap along with eye contact after it, just to further that joke and give it the lifeline it deserves. And then we are going to have continuous shifts of focus throughout the entire performance, which means if we are discussing something that's over here, such as the middle of this story, wherever he is, every now and then Norm will be talking about it and then he will say a little line and throw it over to you. He will throw it to the interviewer. In this case, he throws it to Conan, and the focus, it was on an external story that he was giving information about, and so everybody had to listen. And all of a sudden, the focus is thrown wide out for anybody to interrupt or anybody to give their own opinion or their own input into the situation, which puts everybody immediately back in the room that they're in. It puts all of them in, oh, how do I feel about this? So that's the techniques that we are going to cover today. You can see there's quite a lot going on to this fantastic story. All right, before we get diving into any more, this is exciting. If you're a comedian and you have footage of yourself performing and you like this channel, you like the way I dissect these videos, you like the kind of tips I bring up, well, I can do the same for your performance. If you have footage of yourself performing in front of a live audience, up to 10 minutes long in length. I would love to check it out, offer my positive feedback for you. I can point out things you're doing correct that you might not even know yourself. I've been doing this 24 years. There's not a comedian I cannot help out. And it's also a fantastic way of supporting the channel. If you're interested, drop into the description box. There's an email there. Give me a shout and I'll send you back the information. All right, let's continue on.
The driver we sent to pick you up told you a joke.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell it now on the show.
Yeah, that's how I get a lot of my material.
Okay. Why don't we just have him on next time?
That guy. No, wait till you hear me do it. So the guy, he goes, I say, I'll be the guy.
Okay.
A moth goes into a podiatrist's office.
A moth goes into a podiatrist's office. All right.
You are correct. A moth goes into a...
Boom. All right, we got to jump in here. Already, he's setting up the joke. He said the opening bit. Conan repeated it just so the audience, because what Conan is doing here is smart. He is just like an MC would do. He's the host of the show. He has to repeat the premise of the joke so that everybody at home can understand. It's a smart move for a host to do. You don't want anyone to be left out of the joke. And of course, because even with the focus from Norm being on it doesn't matter where we end up, that way, when you know that way, any chance you're given the ball in any context, you can make some fun of it. So after Conan repeats the premise of the joke, he's nearly interrupted, going, "You are correct." And that's funny. Even that alone, it's funny because it's told with "you are correct," as if as if you need to be awarded something, or as if he just leaves a little pause after saying it. Again, he's always doing the same way of talking. Whenever he talks to Conan in this story, he always does an abrupt style conversation with him, and he leaves this very awkward pause after it that needs to be filled with laughter. He's bringing the laughter out. Also, he has this little cheeky smile on his face that he's telling you, I'm pulling this fun out of you. He's telling you he's going to make you laugh at the absurdity of the situation. So let's move on and just see, because he's set up the context and the premise correctly, let's move on now to see just how further of a vivid image he can paint, knowing that the work has already been done at the beginning of the joke. You already understand the pacing. You already understand that it's the journey, that everything I say is going to be funny, that I'm constantly going to break the focus and throw it back at you, so you need to be paying attention.
A podiatrist's office, and the podiatrist's office says, "What's the problem?" And the moth says, "What's the problem? Where do I begin, man?" He goes, "I go to work for Gregory Linovich, and all day long I work." Honestly, Doc, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I don't even know if Gregory Linovich knows. He only knows that he has power over me, and that seems to bring him happiness. But I don't know. I wake up in a malaise, and I walk here and there. And the podiatrist says, "Oh, yeah?" And the moth goes, "Yes." And he goes, "At night, I sometimes wake up, and I turn to some old lady in my bed that's on my arm. A lady that I once loved, Doc. I don't know where to turn to. My youngest, Alexandria. She fell in the cold of last year. The cold took her down, as it did many of us. And my other boy, and this is the hardest pill to swallow, Doc. My other boy, Gregorio Ivanilidovich."
Boom. All right, let's jump in. What's he done here? Okay, so he's gone into the joke, right? He's got into the joke. We all understand that, okay, now we're all opening up to the idea that, okay, this is going to be one of those jokes, right? We're all beginning to understand there's not going to be a payoff at the end of this. And every now and then, he pauses very briefly. And when he's not looking at Conan, his pauses and he smiles as if in thought about what's either about to come or about what has come. He is letting the audience know that it's perfectly fine to laugh at this. It's perfectly fine. I'm going to make you feel awkward, but we're all having a good time. And the only time he doesn't do that in a pause is when he looks at Conan, and he does so suddenly. And then it's back into the story. So he's throwing it at Conan going, hey, what do you think about this? And so the tension, because we live as an audience through both of them, he understands that if he does that with Conan in the middle of a sentence, or pauses at the end of saying something that's crazy or absurd or profound or depressing, and he just looks at him, he's doing it to us. Right? So that's the kind of way in which we can learn how to tell jokes, even in a one-on-one situation, how to make these style jokes funny, or else in a situation to an audience. Where can we pause in a material where people learn something about us and it might not be an intended joke? If you act the way the stand-up comedy works, you will get laughs where there's not even a joke. I guarantee you, every now and then the audience will fill that bit of that area, the pocket of silence, with laughter. And another thing that Norm has done in this very short clip is he has used the rule of three. The first name he mentioned was the name of the boss, and he made up an absolutely ridiculous name. He giggled to it himself. He laughed himself very momentarily and moved on with the story as he kind of laughed to himself. The second time he mentioned an absolutely crazy name, the audience, there was a little nice vibe in the room because, oh yeah, it's another absolutely absurd name. But then what does he do? He doesn't just mention the third name. He sets up that the third name is about to come. And my son, and we know that, oh, he's going to come up with the name. And then the name is crazier than the first two names. So he is aware that we are waiting patiently to hear what this name is going to be. And when it comes, he over-exaggerates, right? Another mad technique in comedy. You gotta over-exaggerate. If you set them up with one line, set them up with a tag, which was his second name, the second name he mentioned. And then the third punchline, in this way, it was the name of the son, which was the most ridiculous name he could come up with. He even didn't say the correct surname. He didn't say the surname correctly when he said it. He kind of even stumbled on his words, which adds impact to the exaggeration that he's building already. And that's a joke in a joke. This joke has nothing to do with people's names, but he has brought that in because it's absolutely going to work. It's a joke that could have worked in any context, to come up with three names in a story that you're telling something that are clearly fictitious. And that is the joke in itself, even though it's a whole other area over here to the Moth going in and talking. So let's continue on.
I no longer love him. As much as it pains me to say, when I look in his eyes, all I see is the same cowardice that I catch when I take a glimpse of my own face in the mirror. If only the cowardice was stronger, then perhaps I could bring myself to reach over to that cocked and loaded gun that lays on the bedside behind me and end this hellish facade once and for all.
How long a drive was this? Do you live in the valley? Where do you live? Please, sorry.
He says, Doc.
Okay, look, we gotta dissect that. That is absolutely incredible. Right, so I feel, okay, so this is all my own personal opinion. I feel that what's happening here is he's now going into he's furthering on the description, and now he's really, because he used the rule of three, he's got a good reaction from the characters' names in this story, and then he's furthering on, and I no longer love him about the son, and as he says it, he's got a big smile on his face. I no longer love him, and he does that thing again where he shifts over. Imagine that, eh? Hey, imagine telling your son you no longer love them. Hey, that's tough, isn't it? All that is in that gesture. Because we know Norm. Like, we know the way he goes about to communicate with people. We've watched so much of him. If you like Norm, you've seen everything he does. We know that in the subtleties of going, I no longer love him, he's throwing the awkwardness and the tension and the heaviness of that line onto Conan, which means he's throwing it onto the audience, which means he's throwing it onto us watching at home. Okay, furthermore, he keeps going, and he's really beginning to try and get that feeling to Conan, like this is not going to stop. Now, maybe he was just always going to go around in a circle and finish it off. But it's so great because he has another technique that he hasn't used yet because he hasn't needed to. So one area, the way it happened, the way it unfolded naturally, and the way we know this joke is when Conan interrupts to say, how long of a drive was this? Which is a lovely interruption because, you know, Conan wants to keep the ball rolling too. And there's a moment where, you know, Norm just stops. And he doesn't move at all. He keeps that train of thought. He's just right in that same position. And Conan goes, "Oh God, what, you live in the valleys? Okay, and he apologizes. And then so the energy has shifted because Conan interrupted. The energy has sped up just a little bit. And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. Go on, continue." So the doctor says, and Norm just beautifully drops that energy back in. He plunges you back into it again. And it's an opposite to what he's been doing to Conan. He doesn't look at Conan because every time he does that, that's a shift of energy in a more maximum way. That's a shift of focus and pacing in a faster way. It's like, whoa, what do you think about that? But now, don't look at Conan because there's for the moments where you want to raise tension. Now we want to drop it back in from what Conan created by bringing his personality into the story. We want to drop away from that so we don't connect with this. Instead, we just drop back in. So the doctor said, and that pacing, everybody responds, oh, that was the pacing he was just using a moment ago. Boom, we're all back in the middle of the thickness of this horrific story. And let's go from here. So, wow, what amazing comedy techniques used by the best in the game.
Sometimes I feel like a spider, even though I'm a moth, just barely hanging on to my web with an everlasting fire underneath me. I'm not feeling good. And so the doctor says, Moth, man, you're troubled. But you should be seeing a psychiatrist. Why on earth did you come here? And then the Moth said, because the light was on.
My congratulations to anyone who stuck it through to the end.
Wow. Check out just how long he says your light was on, right? Norm looks straight out because your light was on. Boom, the moment hits, and then he gets that smile back on his face and he looks at Conan. And he's looking at Conan right in the face for about 8 to 10 seconds. The same, yeah, there you go. Deal with that one. Yes, I just did it. And again, you can get away with it, and you can get away with just going, there's a parcel, and if you open it up, there's a load of shit inside. There you go. I gave that to you. And because it's so great, because yeah, of course, it doesn't matter you handed me shit. The journey that we got here was so much fun. It was so incredible. It used all of the correct techniques that we should use in comedy, and even just by using the techniques. Now, Norm is a very funny guy. All the things he says are very funny, but even if they weren't as funny as they are in this story, some of the things in this story technically aren't all that funny. It's the fact that he's using the other techniques, such as the eye contact, such as pauses whenever he can to highlight the point that just came before the pause, and then shifting the focus from here to there. Every time you look at somebody in the audience, every time you stop with a pause, it does bring the audience back to the room rather than externally in the story you're talking about. You want to continuously bring them back to the room any chance you get. The more you reward the audience for listening to the information you give them by bringing them back to the room and making them laugh at where they got up to so far, the more intently and more focused they're going to give you later on when you go back to the story. Alright, that's going to wrap it up with this episode. This was one of the most fun episodes I've ever made on this channel because Norm's the king, and I hope you benefited from it. I hope you really enjoyed this, and hit that subscribe button. I know you want to. Let's create a really nice community here of comedians, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Alright, cheers.